Gaiomon is back once again with a little bit of support from BT22, with a new Yuuko and a new Gaiomon as well as Rizegreymon. Here's my most updated current build of the deck. Generally, there are two versions you can go with, either a black base version or red base version. Black base is known to have a more controlled playstyle with memory manipulation, and then for red base is known to have a more aggressive and offensive playstyle with security attack +1 and DP buffs. The last video I covered a black base version, and this time I decided to go for a red base version to try out instead because I want to focus my strategy on attacking and taking out the opponent's security, wiping them out, and utilizing the new Gaiomons as my control elements instead. The idea of the deck is really easy to learn and understand because it follows a traditional playstyle as you want to Digivolve up your stack between your 3s, 4s, and 5s. Meanwhile, you want to play your X antibody versions of Agumons and Greymons and Metal Greymons so that I can Digivolve in between the levels and stack out even more inherent effects and gain bonus advantages. And just so you guys know, I also cooked up a black base version with the updated new Gaiomon from this set as well. So if you guys want to see a deck list for that, make sure to join the AVAULT Club by clicking on the join or the plus button down below. So let's go ahead and begin with our Digi-Egg cards. I'm running 4 copies of the BT14 Koromon that gives us the draw power as long as the opponent's security stack is removed from. And then for our rookies, which are all going to be Agumons, I'm running 4 copies of the BT14-1, which allows us to Digivolve into a Greymon instantly for free at the starter main, as long as we have a tie set up on the board. It also provides the stack extra 2000 DP during your turn, as long as it has Greymon or Omnimon in its name. As for the other Agumon, I'm playing 4 copies of the one from BT12, which is our main searcher to grab us anything that is Greymon or Omnimon, as well as tie. Its inherent effect, instead of giving 2000 DP during your turn, you get extra 1000 DP all turns. And then to wrap up for all the Agumons to further search as well, I'm running 2 copies of Agu X, which ideally you want to Digivolve on top of your regular Agu, and then grab more pieces, which is Greymon or Omnimon, or even X Antibody. So that wraps up for our rookies. Now let's talk about level 4s. I'm running 3 copies of the starter deck Greymon that simply gives security attack +1, which is the damage output one or maximize to wipe out the opponent's security in one single attack. Next, I'm running 2 copies of the BT5 Greymon, which can help us gain a memory when we Digivolve as long as there's Agumon in the stack, which is effectively a 1-cost evil into level 4, which is very memory efficient. And then with its inherent effect, just like the other Agumon, gaining extra 2000 DP during your turn. Next, to follow up with our Greymon, we want to go into its X antibody version, which I'm running 3 copies of Greymon X from BT9. Simply an inheritable to give its protection from deletion and bottom decking and returning to hand effects by trashing 2 of the same level sources. And the key concept is that once you get into your Gaiomon, you want to make sure the stack can stay on the board for as long as possible in order to help you win your games. And that's why this inherent effect is incredibly useful, and I wanted to prioritize the red base instead this time around. And for the other Greymon X antibody, the one from BT11, you can only run it as a one-off since it is restricted. It's just fantastic to help climb into your level 5, especially when getting into Rizegreymon, since you can reduce the Digivolution cost by 2. And this protection effect is similar to the BT9 Greymon X, which gives you coverage from returning to hand or deck, as well as deletion effects, but instead of stripping 2 level same sources, all you have to do is bottom deck an X antibody from the source instead. That's it for all the level 4s. Now let's talk about level 5s. Instead of the regular Metal Greymons, now we switch our gears to focus more on Rizegreymon instead, which I'm running 4 copies of the new one from BT22. Itself has Raid, which is great at getting rid of smaller bodies in the early stages of the game, and the main reason why we play this card is to help us play out our Tamers for free, which is mainly going to be Yuuko and Tai simply because they are red or black. And the main reason why it's really important to establish your Tamers on the board is not only to gain their bonus effects, is also to help you meet the condition of your EX4 Gaiomon to transform itself into another Gaiomon that you have. Just like I mentioned before, security attack +1 is fantastic to rack up even more damage into your opponent's security as you attack into them. Since I'm running Rizegreymon and I'm running sort of the X antibody line to climb up, I've also included 2 copies of Rizegreymon X antibody from BT9. And the nice thing about that is that we also further get to play additional Tamers on our board. But keep in mind, it has to be red or yellow only, so we can't play our black or white Tamers, which I do include in this deck as well. But other than that, you also get to DP reduce your opponent's Digimon to weaken it a little bit, and itself can gain additional DP depending on how many Tamers you got. And then to wrap up for the rest of the level 5s, I'm currently only running 1 copy of Metal Greymon from EX9. You can hard play it by reducing its play cost, otherwise we run to Digivolve into it to stack additional source underneath that's face down to delete something that's 5000 DP or less. But for every face down source we get to increase it by 2000, so we can always easily remove something that's 7k or less, and then just like the inherited effect that we saw before, simply gaining security attack +1. That's it for all the level 5s. Now let's talk about level 6s, which are all going to be Gaiomons. With so many different ones to choose from now, I decided to go with a even 2-2-2 split of each of the 3 different ones, with the BT22, the promo one, as well as the one from EX4. The new one from BT22 itself has Raid and Reboot, and it has a really interesting effect. As you Digivolve into it, you can unsuspend one of your opponent's Digimon, and then you can attack with it. And once you attack with the Gaiomon, it has Rage, so you can redirect the attack, and once you do, you get to gain additional DB buff and piercing for the turn, which pretty much ensures you to run over anything and deal damage at the same time. As for the promo one, it's a little bit more defensive, but it achieves a similar result, because instead of just making yourself attacking your opponent's Digimon, it can taunt your opponent's Digimon instead, as itself has Reboot and Blocker, and once you block your opponent's attacks during their turn, you get to trash your opponent's security. Overall, two different ways to remove your opponent's Digimon, and you get into whichever whenever you need to. And lastly, for the EX4 one, it lets you transition into any of your other Gaiomons that are 13 costs or higher, and then you can easily Digivolve into them at the end of turn and use those effects as well. When you Digivolve into this guy, you get to further delete your opponent's Digimon with 13 play costs or more. If you don't delete anything, you will get to trash your opponent's security instead. Generally, you want to see this card as your first level 6 while you have a Tamer, so you can stack another Gaiomon and go for some fancy combos. But other than Gaiomon, you guys know that I've always been a huge fan of blackwargreymon, and with EX10 Sinister Order coming soon, I can't wait to cover another updated version of that deck with all the new cards as well, and I know you guys are excited for that too. So if you are, make sure to subscribe, turn on the notification bell to stay tuned. That's it for level 6s. Now let's talk about level 7s. Since we're going for aggressive style in order to take out the opponent's securities and potentially close out the game, I'm running one copy of Omnimon X. Aside from Omnimon X, I'm also running Agumon Ace from the LM set as my additional level 7 tech. I find it very useful in many different clutch situations. One of the cool things is that it can work together with your promo Gaiomon as you taunt your opponent's Digimon to attack. Instead of just blocking, you can actually have the choice to blast Digivolve into Agumon Ace and wipe out multiple bodies instead. And once you're able to do so, it gives you the next turn to actually finish your opponents off by further trashing their security as you attack as well. But that's not all. Since we play Agumons as our main bottom line, it also gives us the opportunity to warp straight into it either by blasting or even on our own turn for 3 costs as long as we have 2 or fewer security. I've been loving this card so much because it surprised a lot of my opponents when I played against them. But that's it for all of our Digimon. Now let's talk about Tamers, starting with the new Tamer of the deck, which I'm running 2 copies of Yuuko. It helps you gain a memory at the start of main as long as your opponent has a Digimon, and whenever attack target is redirected, you can suspend her all turns to give your Greymon additional DP buff as well as Digimon effect protection for that particular turn. And that's exactly how you want to synergize with your switching attack targets with your Gaiomon, whether it be the BT22 one as you raid or the promo one as you taunt and block. She does have an inherent effect, but that's not going to be useful in this deck at all because it's mainly intended for the Eater deck instead. Next, for the other Tamers, we'll talk about Tai. I'm running 3 copies of the one from BT12, simply to give us additional 1000 DP and blocker for defensive purposes as we need, but we'll also gain a lot of value as we climb up into the stack as we get to gain a memory back when we go into any of our Greymons. And then I also include 1 copy of the one from BT1 just to give us security attack +1 for even more damage and as well as a memory setter. Because this deck functions a lot with X antibody cards, it also makes a lot of sense to include Cool Boy, one of my personal favorites, to help search to grab any pieces that we need, but also gaining a lot of value during the course of the game as we continue to Digivolve up our stack into our X antibody versions to gain memory and draw additional cards. Other than that, it's a fantastic searcher to grab any piece that we need, especially when it comes to the X antibody line as well as the option as we transition into that, which is also why I'm running 1 copy of Protoform. And then to summarize for the rest of the red staple option cards, I'm running 4 copies of Red Memory Boost, 2 copies of Offense Training, and 1 copy of Red Scramble. The reason why I decided to maximize on Red Memory Boost instead of Offense Training is because this is a stack building deck after all, and I want to ensure to be able to dig deep and find the pieces that I need in order to climb up through my levels. Tech choices and other cards you guys can also include. Instead of the BT14 Koromon, you guys can also run the original BT5 Koromon as you get to draw as you attack, which is fairly similar. Overall, the reason why I decided to go with the BT14 Koromon in the end is simply because it gives me the opportunity to chip with my rookies and draw cards in the early stages if I ever need to, instead of having to attack specifically with a Greymon. Aside from the current bottom lineup that I have, I've also considered running a different bottom end with the EX1 Agumon and Greymon alongside with the EX9 Metal Greymon Ultras mode. And the whole idea is to utilize the EX1 Agumon to search for your ties as you attack, and then use the EX1 Greymon in her effect to play out the tie for free. And once you do, Ultras mode can help you Digivolve into Gaiomon for free, which is absolute value for you to climb up your stack. Although pulling off this combo is incredibly memory efficient, but it is very piece reliant in order for you to execute it. And at the end of the day, this is a red based deck where there's not a whole lot of early game draw power and can consistently help you pull out that combo, which is why I decided not to include that in the end, but you guys can always try it out for yourself because it's a really cool combo when you're able to pull it off. Other than that, there's also the older Ultras mode that can delete smaller bodies on the opponent's side of the board, but mainly to add additional inherent effects of protection, just like the BT9 Greymon as well. If you're focusing your level 5s on more Metal Greymons, you can also play the BT11 Metal Greymon X instead, which can give you D-Digivolve and DP reduction protection, which is really good in the meta, as well as being able to trash your opponent's security with its inherent effect too. Other than that, there's also the BT9 Gaiomon, which you can also include to D-Digivolve your opponent's Digimon, blitz for an attack, and you get to deal additional damage, which is really good for aggressive plays. Instead of Agumon Ace, you can also consider playing Crimson Mode Ace for the similar reason of how you want to synergize it together with Gaiomon as your taunt, and then you can blast Digivolve, removing your opponent's board. The other nice thing with Crimson Mode is that it can potentially trash more than one of your opponent's security stack as it attacks, just because it scales depending on how many cards are in both players' trash. Aside from only utilizing the promo Gaiomon to taunt your opponent's attacks, you can also include Laplace's Demon as well as Trident Arm to do the same thing, so they can reuse its second effect once again to trash further of your opponent's security at the same time. And lastly, if you're looking for removal type option cards, Hades Force is great to get rid of opponent's multiple Digimon and Tamers, and then you can attack with your Gaiomon, and you get to reduce its use cost by 2 if you have a Digimon that has the X antibody option card within the sources. Otherwise, you can use Crimson Blaze to wipe out wide boards and also prevent your opponents from playing any Digimon by effects. Combos and how to play the all new updated Gaiomon deck with the red base, as I'm trying to stack climb and try to deal a ton of damage to your opponent's security and utilize my top end with my Gaiomons to control the board, which is why you want to build into your level 3s, seeing your Agumons to Digivolve all the way upwards to your Greymons and then Rizegreymon and so forth, which is why it's important in your opening hand you want to see your searching cards. Offense Training, Red Memory Boost, Cool Boy, AGU-X, and Agumon from BT12 all do that, and eventually you want to grab your Tamers so that you can play them out for free with Rizegremon's effect. Once you clear off all your opponent's security, and if they're not able to come back in the following turn, that is how you finish them off. Otherwise, you can finish in the same turn with Omni-X, as I'll show you guys some massive damage combos. For this combo, I'm going to show you guys how you can climb all the way up from my Agumon into Gaiomon in a single turn and set up your Tamers on the board so you can gain constant value for the rest of the game. All you need is a combination of any 2 of the Red Memory Boost or Offense Training on the board, and you're ready to go. Push out with your Agumon, and assuming your opponent puts you to 1 memory, we're going to go ahead and try to Digivolve into our X antibody variants as much as possible to search and cycle and draw more cards. By going to AGU-X, we can find a piece that we need. Now we're going to use Offense Training, delay to Digivolve into the starter deck Greymon for free. Just like before, try to weave in as much X antibody cards as you can for 0 cost so that I can draw more, and by going into Greymon X, we have protection in our stack as well. Now use Red Memory Boost Delay to gain 2 memory, and now we're going to Digivolve into Rizegreymon. Since we have 1 or fewer Tamers, this is going to allow us to play out this black type from BT22, and by using his on-play effect, we get to give the Rizegreymon blocker an extra 1000 DP that lasts until the end of the opponent's turn. This is a moment where we can choose to raid in the opponent's Digimon or not, but we're going to continue to extend our combo even further, and the reason why I play this tie is because I want to Digivolve into Rizegreymon X for 1 cost, and by doing so, I can suspend the tie to gain the memory back and still keeping turn. With Rizegreymon X's effect, we get to play out a red or yellow Tamer from my hand for free, which now we're going to play out Yuuko, and then we get to give something minus 2000 DP to your opponent's side of the board as well. Lastly, to finish it off, I'm going to Digivolve into Gaiomon for 4 cost, and then with its when Digivolving effect, we get to unsuspend one of the opponent's Digimon, and then this Digimon may attack regardless. So with that, we're going to go ahead and do so, attack into opponent's security, and then use Raid to redirect the attack into the opponent's highest DP unsuspended Digimon. Since Gaiomon redirected attack, it's going to gain extra 5000 DP and piercing until the end of this turn. And now the next phase is deciding whether you want to use Yuuko or not, which is really important because this is where matchup knowledge comes in identifying whether knowing if your opponent's able to counter against you or ace against you or have anything that might threat against your Gaiomon. If they don't, then you don't necessarily need to use Yuuko, because if you do so, you can get to reboot, and then itself is also a blocker until the end of the opponent's turn, and then you can save that blocker because when you do block, that is when you can use Yuuko to suspend it to gain the extra 3000 DP and the immunity that lasts for that particular turn. If your opponent does have something that can counter you and you really need to get rid of that body, that is where you would use it during the attack instead. So overall, very versatile on how you want to use your Yuuko. Make sure to think twice and make sure to suspend it accordingly and knowing what is the best situation in order to use it. For this time, I'm going to show you guys another way to climb all the way up from your Agumon into a Gaiomon, but instead of the new one, we're going to try to go into this promo one to control the opponent's board and get rid of multiples of their Digimon. Instead, this time we're going to have the BT14 Agumon as well as at least one Taikamiya, which is going to be from BT12 to set up, and one memory is all we need. We're going to push out the Agumon first, and then we're going to use the starter main effect of Tai to give the Agumon extra 1k and blocker that lasts until the end of the opponent's turn. Now we're going to activate the Agumon starter main to Digivolve into a Greymon for free since we do have a Tai. This Greymon is going to gain a memory because we have an Agumon underneath it, and then we're going to suspend Tai to gain another memory as well. Being at 3 memory here is nice because then we can get into our level 5 without passing turn. Just like before, try to weave in X antibodies if you ever have, so that I can draw additional cards and also have protection. Now we're going to Digivolve for 3 into Rizegreymon, which is pretty familiar as before, and this is now we're going to set up our second Tamer, which is going to be our Yuuko, since we have 1 or fewer, and we're going to play that for free. This is the moment where we can identify the board state, whether if we need to swing over the opponent's Digimon, because Rizegreymon itself has Raid, and with all the extra DP buff effects and inheritables, Rizegremon's at least 13k, which can easily get rid of many things on the board. Let's just say we do go ahead and attack opponent's security, use Raid to redirect into their highest DP, that is 12k or lower. Just like before, this is the moment where we need to decide if there's any threat or not and matchup knowledge, whether we need to use Yuuko or not to give it extra 3000 DP and protection. So after taking down the opponent's Digimon, if they still have another one, this is where we can go into our promo Gaiomon for 5 memory, and by doing so, we get to taunt one of the opponent's Digimon, forcing it to attack at the starter main, and then by ending the turn, we also have Reboot, as we get to unsuspend during the opponent's unsuspend phase, and we still have the blocker that lasts until the end of the opponent's turn. So at the starter main, once they go ahead and attack into us, and that's when they might have some threats that we want to utilize the Yuuko there, we're going to first of all block with it with 14k, and if we need extra DP or protection, we're going to suspend Yuuko to pump it up even further, so that we can take down the opponent's Digimon, and also trash their security at the same time, since the attack target has been switched. And now for the full setup OTK combo, which I'm going to show you guys how to 5-0 your opponent's security and win the game in that exact same turn. You're going to need a lot of these cards on the board ready to go, but that's the whole point of the game plan. Sometimes you set up all these Tamers, you set up all these boosts, and you're ready to push out and go, and 1 memory is all you need once again. Push out Agumon, we're going to use Tai first to gain blocker and extra 1000 DP that lasts until the end of the opponent's turn. And then now, with the starter main of Yuuko, since the opponent has a Digimon, we get to gain a memory there as well. And then Agumon is then going to allow us to Digivolve into Greymon for absolutely 0 cost. We're not going to suspend this Tai just yet, nor the Cool Boy. We're going to wait for that until we get into our Gaiomon specifically, which is really important in terms of sequencing. So now I'm going to Digivolve into the X antibody as much as possible if we ever can. Now we're going to use offense training to then Digivolve into Rizegreymon for 1. We're not going to be able to play a Tamer off its effect since we have 3 established on the board already, but this is where I'm going to Digivolve into Rizegreymon, which doesn't have a condition in order to play out the Tamer. This is where I'm going to play out the Memory Setter Tai, which is going to give us security attack +1 to the stack, which is going to be really important in order to deal that extra damage to finish the game off. With its effect, since we have 2 red Tamers on the board, we can give something -4000 DP on the opponent's side. Now I'm going to crack the red memory boost to gain 2, and specifically Digivolve into the EX4 Gaiomon for 4 cost. With its when Digivolving effect, we're going to try to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 13 play costs or higher, but we're going to assume they don't so that we get to trash their security. This is why I'm going to suspend the Tai to gain that 1 memory back, since I evoed into a Greymon and Gaiomon counts in its name. And what this does is that we're going to be at 1 memory on the opponent's side so that we can proceed to the end of turn to Digivolve our Gaiomon into either of the 13 play cost Gaiomon, whichever we want. It doesn't really matter, but let's go into this new one for absolutely 0 cost. By doing so, this is where we'll then suspend the Cool Boy to gain that 1 memory back and draw a card, putting us to 0 so we keep our turn. With his when Digivolving effect, we can unsuspend the opponent's Digimon and then we get to attack with it. Or if they don't have a Digimon on the board, we can just go straight for security. Let's just say they have a Digimon that they unsuspend, and then we get to Raid, swing to opponent's security, use Raid to redirect, and since we redirected, Yuuko comes in once again to give that full-on protection, extra 3000 DP, and with Gaiomon together, another 5000 plus DP. By ensuring Gaiomon reaches all the way up to 24k DP and taking down the opponent's Digimon, we're going to be able to pierce for another 4 checks of the remaining security, since we have security attack +1 here, and another one, and then with Tai and itself, 4 total checks, clearing everything off. And this is exactly once we're at 0 memory, we're going to top it off with Omnimon X to finish the game to go for the OTK. Draconic Blade is now live on the AVAULT Store, which is one of the most epic drops I ever released, and the first 50 people to order the full collection will get an exclusive memory marker during this time only. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. You guys have a great day, great night, wherever you are. See you next video, and this is AVAULT signing